All right, we have seen an uptick in foreclosure activity for the first month of 2022, which comes as no surprise. Welcome to Housing Bubble 2.0 News of the Week, or as I like to call it, another episode of As the Housing Market Turns. Today is the 11th of February. I'm not too sure that I'm going to get the video up today or maybe tomorrow over the weekend because I got lots going on and I'm behind. And Randy Patrick here, putting the realism back in real estate. Hope you're doing well. This will be the last video in my series of predictions for 2022. Why? Because everybody else is making predictions. I might as well do it as well. But I'm actually going to tell you what I really think is going on and what to look out for as time goes on in this crazy housing market, which really doesn't make any sense and is kind of going on longer than it really should. So that's kind of the scoop here. So we're going to look at that. And, obviously what we see in the marketplace now is everybody's chiming in as to what's going on and what they think is going to happen, etc. So literally every other day I'm looking online, I see all these articles like this. It says, hey, experts predict what's going to happen, blah, 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 yada, yada. We all get it, right? Well, it's kind of what we're seeing is the fact that, I guess what's where I'm looking for is that, you've got some groups, like maybe it's split down the middle. Some groups saying we're going to see double-digit increases, and you got others who are a little more moderate saying we're probably going to see between, 2.9 and 5% increase. And the reason being, well, because we have interest rates are rising now. Maybe we're going to see some inventory. Buyer sentiment just came out. University of Michigan does their buyer sentiment every month, and it just hit another all-time low. I think the lowest since 1979 or something to that effect with respect to the economy, like everything. You know what I mean? So basically, people are going, I don't need to buy expensive houses anymore because we're going to have a tough 2022. As if 2020 and 2021 wasn't hard enough on all of us, we expect to see even more, we'll call economic issues, as the year goes on. And that's what's going to happen right now. So as far as, what the experts, and again, let's all sort of put things in perspective here. I mean, really, it's called a wild ass guess, and experts are wrong, and people who are not very smart are right sometimes. And it's sort of tough to be kind of in the middle of trying to figure all this stuff out. I've been very busy lately. I understand where this is going to go. And I guess I'm pretty happy and satisfied where life is going to take me right now and the stuff that we're going to be doing and we're already doing and moving forward. So that's kind of the spot I'm in. So, and I'll be upfront, I'm getting bored of doing my own videos. How narcissistic is that, right? Like, in other words, it's like this. Yeah, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. I see it from your perspective. It's not happening, but behind the scenes, I know what's going on. And I'm already, I guess you could say, satisfied where things are going to go and working towards that end goal. So, I'm going to get really more detail as time goes on and really start giving it to everybody that, here's what's going to happen and what to look out for. Because, again, markets being manipulated, we're getting played. It's the way it goes. Two housing markets, guys. Two housing markets going on right now. So let's get into this. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because, Adam Data Solutions put out a little bit of information, and we'll start that process in a second here once I get the slide to move. My software is, it's high, what's the word I'm looking for? High IO, so it takes a while sometimes. So spike in foreclosure activity, not a surprise. And why this is actually interesting, because if you actually take a look at, the paragraph, or the first paragraph, it says, the sources that gather such data have all reported a steady decline in mortgage delinquencies since last summer, and all stages are now close to the historic lows that existed prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, Adam says foreclosure activity is mounting. So if you do some just looking on the websites these days, you see that delinquencies down, 90-day delinquencies down, serious delinquencies down, the whole bit. So it's kind of like we're being told that everything's good on one hand, and yet Adam comes out, which is who I believe more so than the other people, about, hey, we had a big spike and stuff in January here. So it really is difficult to find out, if you're an average person just wanting to buy a house and live in it, you have no interest in housing policy and history and all the crap that we deal with in the housing market. I mean, it's confusing at best, like you're being told one thing, but something else is really happening here. So it's just interesting because now we're going to see some actual stuff happening with respect to the foreclosure world. And the reason why, because pretty much all the moratoria is over. Everything's over. Forbearance is over. Well, people are coming out of forbearance programs, and and I talked about that last video on how it's going to play out, etc. But take a look at this slide here. Is that top right corner, 30-year fixed rate, 4.02%. So we are seeing an increase in rates from the interest perspective. So the mortgage interest is going to be a little higher. That's going to affect buyers. That's going to affect price points because your buying power is now suddenly diminished, by whatever that equals to in real hard dollars. So that's going to hopefully force price points to be reduced. On the other side, though, it's like, well, if we're still clamoring looking for properties, maybe that's going to maintain the need or the lack of inventory, so people will still pay. Who knows? I mean, only time will tell. But again, having the market being choked off for 2 years now. So here we are, we're kind of, in the first week, the second week of February, and we've almost been in what I call this COVID choke situation for about 2 years. So what that really means is that, I think it was February or early March where, COVID came into play, and then, things slowed down and virtually stopped with respect to real estate movement. The forbearances came into play, foreclosures, got into moratorium status, the whole bit. So things really changed. We're about 2 years now, and it's really had a dramatic impact on the market. I've got my thoughts on how that all played out and why it played out, but we'll see how the distress will rebound and see what effect it'll have in the open market. So interesting to note, though, that when you take a look at Adam and what they talk about is that there is, highest since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, which is great. Obviously, what we see here is that default notices, scheduled auctions, bank repossessions, foreclosure filings up 29% from a month ago, but up 139% from a year ago. So I know that January typically, we see a slowdown end of the year in this activity in November and in December. Why? Because typically there's a week people are off, Thanksgiving week, the Christmas week. Sometimes the lenders don't follow through on foreclosure auctions during the holidays because that's just not nice to do to people, to throw them out of their house during the holidays. It's not good public relations as well. So some of that kind of backs off. And then once January hits, it's like, okay, now we're back with the vengeance and let's go. So we're going to see that. We're going to see much more activity. January is always a bigger month with respect to activity. And, it sort of kicks off the year. So again, up 29% from a year ago, from a month ago, 139% from a year ago. Lenders repossessed almost 5,000 properties through completed foreclosures, and when they are foreclosed on, they get taken back by the bank. They become REOs, which stands for real estate owned. It looks like that's up 57% from last month and up 235% from last year, the seventh consecutive month of an annual increase in completed foreclosures. Okay, look at that. Seventh consecutive month with an annual increase. Well, what happened 7 months ago? Well, if I go January, December, November, October, September, August, July. Oh, guess what? We now had, I guess you could say, we had the end of the foreclosure and eviction moratorium by the federal government. So it was the end of July, but we were already seeing a little bit of activity. So since that's been over, we've now seen a general increase in activity. So every single month, we're seeing completed foreclosures are increasing now. So it's happening, guys. The amount is so low because when you're starting from virtually nothing, anything is a significant increase, clearly. But the point, though, is that now we're actually seeing this kind of take place, and it's going to start happening on a much larger scale. So it is interesting to note that that's what's happening. So we take a look at places like Michigan. Their REOs are up 622%. Georgia, 163%. Texas, 98%. Tennessee, 50%. Alabama, 44% on their REOs. Major metropolitan stats with a population greater than 200,000. Detroit, the 1,000 REOs happening. Chicago, 210. New York, 129. Miami, 113. So again, these are homes that are being foreclosed on. They're not sold at the auction. No one's bought them at the auction for whatever reason. They're being taken back by the bank. So we can see that, like the usual players as far as locations, cities, etc., are going to show increases. If you take a look at what they're showing here, for whatever reason, Wayne County, Michigan, which is the greater Detroit area, really had a huge spike. So obviously there was some backlog going on there, and I do believe if you take a look at when we sort of had the pandemic sort of in its throes last year, I remember from Case-Shiller data that there was a number of months, like 10 months or even a year, where Wayne County was not reporting data into Case-Shiller, so they could use they could determine the Detroit area metro housing numbers. And I believe that's because that county had pretty much closed down all of the county offices. So of course it's going to also close down where the foreclosures take place. Usually the clerk's office and probably the bidding portal or site or whatever. So anyway, the point is that obviously that's opened up now, and look how many. So we see a massive amount of homes going to foreclosure sale and then getting picked up by the bank in Wayne County. And you can see the normal locations: Cook County, Illinois, Los Angeles County, California, Broward County, which is Lauderdale, Miami-Dade, obviously Hollywood, Miami, Florida, Baltimore, Maryland area, Harris County, Texas, that's Houston, Riverside County, California, always big, Jefferson County, Alabama, and DeKalb County, Illinois. So we're seeing that suddenly things are picking up now from the repossessions at auction, which is interesting. So again, that'll start, and will those things come back into the marketplace? Remains to be seen. Highest foreclosure rates in Jersey, Illinois, Nevada. So basically, again, from a state perspective, it's always, Illinois was leading. Where is it here? New Jersey was the number one location from a ratio perspective. Illinois next, Nevada, Michigan, Ohio. So again, it's the same players. Metropolitan areas at over 200,000 people that had big activity were Detroit, Atlantic City, New Jersey, Cleveland, Ohio, Columbia, South Carolina, Trenton, New Jersey. And then we're talking about the bigger areas, the big cities. Obviously, the worst foreclosure rates were Chicago, Las Vegas, and Miami. So again, when I look back to what happened in the last housing crisis, I'm not at all surprised at where we are with respect to this. Okay, so it's starting up again. Will we see exactly what happened 10, 12 years ago? I'm not too sure, but a lot of the stuff's looking the same. Foreclosure starts increase monthly in 33 states, including District of Columbia. So what we're seeing now is Florida, okay, for example, states that saw, lenders started the foreclosure process on about 11, almost 12,000 properties in January, up 29% from last month and up 126% from a year ago. States that saw the highest number of foreclosure starts included Florida, where I'm at, California, Texas, Illinois, Ohio. Again, top players from last housing market. This is where we get maybe a little bit interesting, some of the metro areas like Minneapolis up 300%. Okay, Detroit up, of course, San Antonio, Texas, Jacksonville, Miami. So Jacksonville, Miami, not surprised. Minnesota, interesting. San Antonio up a bit. So again, certain cities, certain metros are going to peak and spike here and there, but you can see that it's not just in one location, starting to hit many locations across the country. So, and that's why when you look at some of the statistics going, well, if the lenders are starting the foreclosure process on 11, almost 12,000 properties, they are seriously delinquent. So what we don't know is the fact that, from a data collective perspective, is that if you're seriously delinquent, and then which means 90 days or greater not paying your mortgage, and now you jump into the foreclosure process, does that new designation of being foreclosure process take away from seriously delinquent status? You see, that's why it's about reporting and data and numbers and whatever. That's why I don't always believe what I hear, because I've talked to a lot of data companies out there, because I'm always interested, and when I purchase their services and stuff, I want to know where they're getting their data, how they're getting it, how they're displaying it, and like the mix and stuff like that, timing, etc. So I do know that sometimes things in one category look bad, but then when they move to the next category, it drops off from the previous category, which means that past category looks better, you see. So it's just the way it's all presented. But ultimately, we can see a lot of activity happening here, which is interesting. So again, that's what's happening in this world here. So it's starting to pick up, like we've talked about it over how many months now, what's going to happen. And also, if you guys are not subscribed to my channel, if you could do me that great honor by smashing subscribe button, really appreciate that. If you like what you hear, knowing that I'm looking at your best interest and telling you what's going on in the housing market, and where to buy, where to look, and where not to pay premium dollars these days in housing. And if you're already subscribed, or think you are, if you could just sort of re-smash that subscribe button as well. Why? Because I'm always losing subscribers from behind the scenes in this world that we live in. So appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, guys. So one of the things that I've always talked about here, and I do read the comments from time to time, and people are like, "You've been talking about this for 3 years now." It's like, yeah. You know why? Because just before COVID hit, we were actually bubbling up, all right? Because I look at statistics, I look at foreclosure filings and auctions and things like that. That's the distressed market I like to play in. We were surging just before COVID hit, all right? So that was happening. COVID hit, everything stopped. Why? We have the moratorium. Now, just as a side note, so COVID, we'll call it hitting in February of 2020. Well, little known fact, I know I've talked about this before, in previous videos. But back in the day when we had the first housing crisis, a lot of chaos was going on with foreclosures, auctions, short sales, whatever. And what was happening is that people who were losing their homes either through a short sale or through an auction were getting hurt. Like, not only you lost your place, but you got smacked again upside the head, because lenders were saying, well, we lost money on the short sale or foreclosure auction, so therefore we're going to send you a 1099 for the loss. It's like phantom income, and you got to pay that in your taxes. So it's like a double whammy for a homeowner. Well, the federal government stepped in to create what was called the Mortgage Debt Relief Act. And that sort of went on for a number of years, and then it got renewed for a couple of years, and then it got sort of renewed every year on an annual basis. And then it was like, well, it was getting renewed like for the previous year, the next year. It got kind of sketchy. So in 2016, it kind of stopped. And, 2000, I believe, 2017, it got renewed. In 2018 and 19, nothing happened with it. So it was kind of weird. Well, in December 2000, like almost before Christmas in December 2019, under the previous presidential administration, they put together a new, we'll call it sort of a format of the Mortgage Debt Relief Act, and they called it the QPRI, Qualified Principal Residential Indebtedness. I don't think it was an act, but it was a tax thing in the tax code. What that basically said was the same thing. If you lose your house through short sale or through a foreclosure, and the lender sends you a 1099-C that says, hey, we lost, therefore we're putting this loss of income on you as a forgiven amount, so it's an income benefit to you, you got to pay tax. Well, you don't have to with this sort of tax rule. So that very quietly and very mysteriously reappeared in end of December of 2019, just before COVID hit. So when I look at that, I'm going, people saw, powers that be knew it was going to happen, saw what was going to happen, and they actually put that in play to help homeowners. So this will be available to homeowners going forward now, of course, but I just found it very interesting that quietly sort of happened. Wasn't much play or much notice or much, we'll call it press about it, but it's there and it's very important. And back in the last housing crisis, it helped a lot of people, I guess you could say, stave off further financial ruin, either losing their house through foreclosure or through a short sale. So that's why I talk about that. So again, my two housing markets: mainstream retail market, shadow inventory. Okay, mainstream is what we talk about on buying, selling, MLS, Redfin, Realtor.com, Zillow, all that stuff. Bidding wars, whatever, pushing prices up. Shadow inventory, pre-foreclosures, other distress. It's not in the market at this point in time and not available yet. Not that it's not available, you got to go get it. You got to find it. You got to sort of create the deal yourself. So that's what's happening. Two specific markets that are out there, and I think the better we realize that's what's happening, you'll understand the market better. Now, back to Adam with respect to the future situation here. Well, housing markets at risk from the pandemic downturns concentrated in Jersey, Illinois, and California. So kind of like the foreclosure stuff we're seeing concentrated in where? Jersey, Illinois, California, Ohio, other places. So we're seeing this manifest now. This actually was an article in January 20th of this year, and obviously the stuff I showed you just came out basically yesterday, today. So ultimately, you can see that they were talking about locations are going to get hit hard for various reasons, and now we're seeing that actually manifest coming through with foreclosure filings. So indeed, this is happening, but it's good to reflect on what they were saying. Most vulnerable counties are where? In Chicago, New York City, Philadelphia areas, as well as Delaware and parts of California. So yeah, ringing the Chicago and Illinois area. Lots of stuff going on there. Okay, the New York area, man, tons of pre-foreclosures. I mean, I think I spoke in the last video on like Long Island having 14 or 15,000 pre-foreclosures sitting there waiting for this to happen. So it's going to be an issue. Philadelphia area, California area, special areas of special areas of California, Delaware as well too. So when you start looking at this, stuff's going to happen, and I guess we'll call it sort of these are more serious areas. In Florida, we got Bay County, which is Panama City up in the Panhandle, Flagler County, Palm Coast, just north of sort of between Daytona and Jacksonville, and then Lake County, which is one of the sort of just outside the Orlando area. So these are the kind of areas that are showing greater, we'll say, propensity to have issues with respect to housing the next little while. And again, counties at most risk have higher levels of unaffordable housing, underwater mortgages, and foreclosure filings. All right. And one of the things I want to point out too is that when things are going to get bad, we don't talk about them, or they're not being talked about. So as a side note here, we haven't seen any information on underwater properties, the certain number of those for the past little while. We haven't got any updates on a lot of the foreclosure filings, on forbearance numbers, whatever. So, yeah, Adam still does some of the things, but the other sources that were talking about it are downplaying that as well, too. So for me, I know that they see what's going on and they don't want to talk about it. They want you to think about, oh, buy the nice, expensive home over here. Better buy it now at top of the price before interest rates go up here. Because they don't want you to know what's going to happen in the future. All right, so that's just how I look at it. It's part of a game. Now, where my little arrow here, it says what? At least 10% of residential mortgages were underwater in the third quarter of 2021. And that underwater means you owe more than your property's worth. So at least 10% of residential mortgages. Well, again, if we have all this, I guess you could say, equity out there, why is 10% at least of them are underwater? Nationwide, sorry. We're talking, let me expand upon that. Okay, at least 10% of residential mortgages were underwater in the third quarter in 18 of the 50 most at-risk counties. Okay, we've got to specify that. Nationwide, 7.1% of mortgages fell into that category, with the highest underwater rates among the 50 most at-risk counties being in Kennebec County in Maine, Webb County, which is Laredo, Texas, Kankakee County, Illinois, outside Chicago, St. Clair County, outside St. Louis, Cumberland County, which is Fayetteville, North Carolina. And we're talking underwater being 29%, 23%, 19%, 18%. So that's pretty significant underwater. So again, underwater means you own more than what it's worth. So if you sold your home today, you'd have to bring money to the closing table to pay off what's owed, because once you closing costs, commissions, whatever, you're going to be negative, or you got to do short sale, okay, and hope the lender's going to help you on that. So interesting to see that that's where we were, and we're going to see a lot more activity, I said, because of that. So that's kind of my perspective on things here, guys. So that's interesting to see where, we've got these at-risk locations, and it's same thing, like nothing surprises me. It's kind of like all the issues we had before, we're going to have again. Actually, we'll talk about this in a second here, but, where we're going to go with the housing crisis, okay? Here's, again, this is an example I've talked about before. This is why you want to do the distressed housing, because, yes, you can find deals, and we'll hopefully find more of these. This is a home run, by the way, okay? This is a home run deal. You can look at the numbers there. But here's what I'm seeing. I've got my little sticky notes here to help me along with this. So we've just entered 2022. We're starting to see some increase in foreclosure filings. We're going to see that's going to increase and going to move forward. Every month, we're going to see more stuff happening, whether it's foreclosure filings, foreclosure auctions, people in the foreclosure process, moving through that process, people trying to sell to get their equity out before they lose everything. We're going to see a lot of that going on, okay? Now, but here's the deal, is that we're not really going to see much of that hitting the retail market for at least 6 or 7 months, because by the time it all has to sort of work its way through the process, filings and lenders and auctions and back in the market or whatever, it takes a few months. So we're not going to see a lot of that hit probably till the latter part of the year. So what's going to happen? And again, it's the housing bubble bros like us or me that are going to, get slapped on the chin with respect to, we're wrong, etc. Well, we're probably going to see property values increase. Why? Because we're going to have what I call the spring and summer selling season. So typically, everything builds up to sort of May, June, July, and then once everything closes in July, August, it's going to taper down a bit. So we're going to probably see, and we'll probably see some increases. It's going to be metro based. So again, each metro will play out a little different, but we'll probably see a last surge of increases happening, because that's what's going to happen. That's a natural progression. That's where people buy and sell the most. Why? Because the distressed is not going to be in the market to make any impact in the market at this point in time. It's going to take a while for it to get there. So after that, we'll sort of see things plateau, and then we're probably going to see some things slide in different locations here. So again, it won't be till after the summer where any discounted or any distressed property could come back on the market to make any sort of impact whatsoever. So just realize that. After that, we'll probably see some normalization, and then as this plays out, we're going to see the true number of distressed people sort of working its way through the system. That's all the foreclosures that are going to come, all the people in pre-foreclosure, all people that are in forbearance, okay, that have to work through their forbearance programs, all the people that do loan modifications that after 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months bail on those and re-default and come back into the foreclosure process. So we're looking at probably, not seeing anything material or obvious until the after summertime, probably into 2023, probably a good 2 years after that. That's will be where the sort of, the bulk of the fund will be. But right now, there's still stuff happening. So in other words, it's not like if you say I'm going to wait for 3 years to see what's going to happen, you're doing yourself a disservice, because look at this opportunity right here. That's a great deal right now. And if you know what you're doing, have the right training, the right background, the right support, the right real estate agent, whatever you want to call it, you can get deals like this. Now, these deals are not on market, so you just can't go, I'm going to go pick one off Zillow and get it for 50% off the mortgage balance. It doesn't work that way. We actually have to go after the homeowner, get the homeowner to work with us, convert that into a deal where it can become available. So there's a bit of work involved here, but this is what we did back in the last housing crisis, and we're going to see this happen probably in the future. But realize that that's why mainstream media and the housing narrative wants you to look over here. They don't want you to see what's going to happen over here, because they don't want you waiting for that to happen, right? They'd rather you buy here and you could become maybe a future casualty and become over leveraged on your home if stuff over here transpires. So you see, we have to be careful. You got to understand who's pressing the buttons, who's pushing the market, and who's creating the narrative here, guys. So basically, realize that the key is interest rates, where it's going to go. If we're into the fours now, we'll see where that goes. That's going to have some impact with respect to people not having the same amount of buying power they have. And then we'll start to see we'll start to see some price declines, because if sellers want to sell, it's that same thing. Well, my interest rates are going up, so my volume buying power is going down, which means somewhere in the middle, sellers are going to have to get to make it worthwhile for me to buy your property, right? So I'm still buying the top of the market, but the top of the market is going to start to erode now. And then as time goes on, the distressed properties will come into play, and that's what's going to happen. So ultimately, in the end, it's not the best news, everybody, but it's the start of maybe 2 or 3 years, if not more, of kind of this shift in the marketplace here. And it's best to be educated, informed, see what's going on in your neck of the woods or wherever you want to buy, and sort of plan for that, all right? So that's kind of my thoughts on this, guys. So let's take a look at what else I got in the go here, just to tell you. Oh, by the way, I mentioned all the distressed properties. If you want to see what's happening in your area, your neck of the woods, your location, go to gethousingdata.com. That's gethousingdata.com. It's my partnership with foreclosure.com. So you got a 7-day free trial. It's a really good software to do a quick and easy look at all the distressed listings instead in your area or anywhere else in the country. Okay, so the price point is good, and it's just designed to have you take a look at that. So see for yourself what's going on where you want to buy. So please go to gethousingdata.com. That's gethousingdata.com. It's always there for you when you need it, okay? All right, and then some of the things I'm working on is as far as projects. So obviously, got a build to rent or build to flip going on. So secured, working with a builder developer, and it's investor pricing. So that's interesting to you. Certainly connect with me. I've got another new program coming out. It's going to be like an 8-week training program, limited amount of people that'll be allowed in this. It's called the Distressed Deal Architect. You're going to hear more about that next week. Obviously, my short sale program is where you should focus. If this is interesting to you, you want to see what's going on with all these pre-foreclosures. So definitely stuff happening here. And just going back to the build to flip, build to rent. So obviously having some good pricing. Got a 24-unit townhome development project we are looking at right now. So if anybody wants information on that, what I mean information is not to buy the units, because I'm not there yet. We're just starting this project. Is if you want to be in on the project, be a developer with us or funder or somehow be involved, let's go. So give me a shout, because I'm going to be making this a larger announcement in the next couple of weeks too, because we are in the initial stages of this. We're going through the development plans, the costing, the whole bit. We essentially have, secured. We have secured access to the land. I guess that's the whole point. So it's just a matter of how the numbers work out. So that's what we're looking at. If this is interesting to the larger investors out there, please let me know, and we can talk about how you can participate in this. So that's what I'm trying to do, and more of these down the road. Again, the build to rent is on your lot stuff too. That's why if you just want to do one build to rent, we can do that as well, which is great. Reach out to me if you want more information, guys. So we'll take it from there. So once again, thank you very much for the views, likes, and comments. Please share the video with your family and friends. If you are not a subscriber, please help my channel grow and subscribe. Realize that we're just going to start on this sort of wild journey to see how this market sort of plays out, and I'm looking forward to it. But again, reach out to me because lots happening. I know some of you have, and we're engaging. There's more out there. A lot of people are coming to Florida, and I'm willing to help you and support you in that. And I'm hiring people. I'm hiring real estate agents, because I can't do all this myself, and I've got a lot of stuff on the go, and we're going to hit this market hard, and I need more agents who want to work with me and understand the distressed business, and we've got a ton of leads. I've got 10,000 phone numbers for 10,000 distressed property here in the area that I got to start down for dollars on. So if you want to be part of that, let me know. All right, guys, appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.